Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And I've got a question for you. Does having an amazing home studio and a compelling presence make a difference not only on Zoom, in your videos, but also in your business? I am just so happy to have today's guest on because this is actually a topic that we have not really covered in depth on the show yet. So, Junaid, I am so glad that you're here today.
Kim, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to talk about my passion, and that is making sure that everybody looks good and sounds good on video.
So, I'm going to ask you the question that everybody's probably really wondering. Well, in today's world of Zoom, everybody's on Zoom. Does it really make a difference to have that home studio and that amazing presence?
Well, in one word, I'm going to say absolutely yes. Because, number one, it's been 3 years since the pandemic hit. You've had enough time to level up. That excuse is gone out the window. Basically, people are saying within 6 months, people started to level up their spaces because what we're doing is we're showing up as ourselves, and you don't go show up in person in pajamas. You don't go show up in person without your hair made or without your makeup. So think about that. Not leveling up your studio is the same as going to a very important meeting in your pajamas.
Sorry, excuse me, audience. Our house is very dry, and
Mm.
I'm trying to figure out how to get a little bit more humidity in so my voice isn't so rough, but some days it is.
Oh,
Ah, but you know what? That's part of being human. And I think, part of having a good presence is also authenticity.
amen. 100%. And and as authentically as we are, you want to show the growth. Like, sure,
Yes.
6 months ago, we just started. I'm doing video, I'm doing more video, I'm doing more video. But I started to notice, how am I self developing? How am I self leveling
Mm,
up? And that's in, okay, I need to add some more decor in my background. I need to add more lighting. I need to make sure that people can hear me properly. Because as you create more content, as you create more uh, information, as you educate people more, they want to be able to understand what you're saying. And if you're
yes.
not clear in the audio, they're gonna go to the next person who sounds better, looks better. I mean, why do we watch movies? Why do we watch movies and TV shows? It's the eye candy, right? Yeah. So you
Yes.
draw them in with the eye candy, and then you keep them with the story.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about you because, like, I can see in your background that, and I got to see the background before you turned on all the fancy lights. You got a ton of figures. I'm sure my son would go absolutely
Yes,
nuts.
you would.
So why don't you share a bit of your story and how did you come to, be um, helping people with their home studios?
Well, I do call myself the home studio architect, and how did I get here is a beautiful question because I think it was way back in 1985 when my uncle gave me a gift as a film camera as a gift, and it's like, here's something that you can use. So I got really fascinated. I'm like, oh my god, this is a camera. So I started learning and started shooting with it, and that was so long ago. And I just kept that passion into photography, so much so that I got into film. I started creating films about 15 years ago. I was doing films and shooting films and learning everything that I could about cameras and getting even deeper into it. Now, when the pandemic hit, we all started working from home, and some had that luxury to be able to work from home, some didn't.
Mhm.
But what we did start to do is spend more time on Zoom calls. We spend more time
Yeah.
with other people, leveling up your heart, connecting with other people.
Yeah.
And as I am sitting here, I saw my image and I'm like, okay, I didn't like it. So I was like, how can I level up? And we we all know Pat Flynn's been creating these live streams. During the pandemic, he would do
Mm.
daily live stream on YouTube. And
Yeah.
his set looked amazing because he had been creating content long before we all had. He had courses, like he had
Mm.
all of that stuff. But what was really interesting is he created a blog post listing out all the gear that he was using in his space.
Yeah.
And I go and read that blog post and I'm like, wait, I have 90% of the gear that he's talking about. I should
Love
put
it.
this together. So because I have a little bit of Hollywood background, filming background, all we're doing is we're staging a set. So
Mm.
only like everything that the camera sees is pristine. Now
Yes.
if I showed you what's in my office, there's a lot of boxes, there's a lot of mess around because we have kids. But what the camera sees is not what everybody else sees. So
Yeah.
you set that scene, you set that stage. So that's what I started to do and put all of these things together. And as I was doing it, people started asking me, wait, why is your video so good? What are you doing different? So I
Yeah.
started teaching them, I started consulting on it, and that's been the journey, and it's been beautiful.
Love it. Still want to find out about those toys in the background.
So the toys back here, they're Lego actually discontinued them, but they're Star Wars figures that you would put together. Construct. Basically, I think they had Bionicles back in 2000s, which were the
Yes,
similar.
I
You remember
remember those.
Bionicles? So
We'd
they
get them for our son.
Yeah, so they took those and then they, started doing Star Wars, but unfortunately, they discontinued like that entire lineup. But I was lucky enough to have at least I have like four stormtroopers. I have Darth Vader. I have Kylo Ren. I have Rey and Captain Phasma. I have
Love it.
Boba Fett back there. I have two or three figures still that I haven't opened out of the box because the fun of Lego is building the Lego, building the stuff. So,
Yes.
so I have like four or five figures still waiting to go on the shelf.
I spent a lot of time with my son when he was little, sitting on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
building
Building
Lego with
Lego.
him.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
and it
Yes.
was amazing because back then you could actually buy buckets of
Mm-hmm.
Lego.
Mm-hmm.
And so people who had kids who were older who no longer had their Lego would give us these buckets of Lego. So
Yes.
my son had like so much Lego and it would get
Uh-huh.
like all over the place.
Yeah.
But he loved it and he would just, whatever came to his mind, he would create and I'd create my stuff and
Mm-hmm.
he'd create his and you know, my
Uh,
stuff was mostly very symmetrical
sure.
and his stuff was kind of all over the place, but it made him happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and it made him happy that I sat and I built Lego with him, right? And then as he got older,
Yes.
we'd buy him sets and him and his dad would, build out these sets. I remember we
Mm.
got a Millennial Falcon.
Oh my
And it was
God.
probably about it was at least like a foot. Like
Okay.
it was a
It's not
pretty
the
big.
full size one, right?
No, it was maybe a foot to 2 feet. Like, I mean, it was a good size
It was a
one,
good
but
size, yeah.
it wasn't massive. And they took a lot of time building that
Mm-hmm.
one out. They actually followed the instructions. That was
You
pretty
kind of
cool.
have to follow the instructions for those sets. Well, what's funny is
Oh,
I have a little group chat with all the Lego fanatics, and they post videos on there all the time. The latest one that I saw was this guy on YouTube created a water ride using Lego. I'm like, what? This is so cool. So I'll share the link with you later on.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, Lego has become this massive thing, but you know, I think we can learn from Lego
Yes.
because when you look at the packaging on Lego,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the branding on Lego,
Yeah,
I mean, they have it down. They know their audience,
they do. They
right? So
absolutely do.
whenever they create something, and they have two different audiences. They have their adult audience and they have their kid audience.
Mm-hmm.
And all of their branding, their advertising is perfect because they choose which one and they don't try to mix the two.
No,
So when they're advertising to the adults, it's different than when they're advertising to the kids.
that's so
It
true.
is an amazing study in how something that almost closed, that almost died, has
Mm-hmm.
now become this massive conglomeration.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible.
And I think just the other day I read a news that Lego hit 90 years. And for that 90-year anniversary, 91 years, they're rolling out something that's mostly most loyal fans can appreciate. And that's their Lego Insiders Club. What this means is that you can, if you're already a VIP member, you can go in and start scanning QR codes from old books and, get rewards for those old books that were not previously registered. So sets that
Nice.
you bought from Target, sets that you bought on Amazon, like all of those sets can be accounted for because Lego wants to identify and like, hey, we want to make sure that you're keep coming back and buying sets from us.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
So, and the reason we talk about Lego and just to bring it back is because I love building stuff, right? So,
Mm,
that's seen in my background. So that question arises, I'm like, okay, what do I like to do? So what we're doing is going deeper than what you see. And that deeper
yes.
connection is what the studio is now creating with my audience. They
Mm,
understand who I am. I love building stuff. I love building studios. I love building Lego sets. Love building all sorts of things. And so that connectivity is what the studio, the professional looking space, brings that personality out without you
yeah.
having to talk about it.
Yeah, and it's funny because we are more than one type of person. I am a
Mm-hmm.
publisher, but I am also a crafter.
Yes.
I knit, I crochet, I cross stitch over the years.
Nice.
A few years ago, I felt I have a new love in my life. It's called a Cricut,
A
Cricut cutting
Cricut.
machine.
Yes. Another Cricut
And
friend.
I've got projects I'm working on downstairs right now, but the what I do as a hobby
Mm-hmm.
is I actually create designs and I have designs created because I have some graphic design skills, but not as quite as many. But I've actually been building out stores on the major sites where people
Mm,
can go and buy my designs and use them for the Cricut machines.
there you go. Isn't that amazing?
And this is being filmed in September. I just got accepted by Cricut.com to have my designs on their site.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
I was so excited yesterday when I got the email. I was like, yes. And my husband comes in. He's like, what? And I told him, he's like, wow, congratulations. That's so cool. I'm like, I know. I'm so happy.
And what's beautiful about that is on my podcast, Hacks and Hobbies, I talk to folks just like you who took their passions to profit, right?
Yeah.
You've got to keep at it to be able to make profit out of it. And the more passionate you are about it, the more people see it and the more people want to follow and come to you.
Yeah. And what you just said there actually applies to even your videos.
Hmm.
When you're on Zoom, when you're doing these Zoom calls, when you're on these group networkings, when you're creating your videos,
Yeah.
it's the passion that attracts people. I've been doing a lot of studying on YouTube lately,
Hmm.
and one of the things I've been doing is there's a few YouTube teachers and they're amazing. And I love watching their videos because they're doing the things they're telling the people to do.
Yes.
and you can see the results. When one video gets like 40,000 views within
Mm-hmm.
2 days, they've
Mm-hmm.
got something going on.
Yeah.
And I've been studying these videos because I want to start creating my own. So I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
some research ahead of time. I mean, I know that a lot of it's going to come down to practice, but I figure
Yes.
if I can start off with a few things, a few good things in my bucket, right?
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
few hints, tips that are going to help. And one of the things I realized was all of these people, they had passion. And when they did their videos, it came out in their voice. It wasn't just a talking head.
No.
They moved, they had their hands going, right? There was passion in their voice. And I think that's something that we miss out because we think we have to be all this stiff and professional on
No.
Zoom and you know, but I've learned when I'm me, when I'm authentic, when I'm passionate, and when I share that passion, then I connect better with people.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons why Clubhouse blew up.
Yeah,
People didn't have to think too much about who they were. They just talked. And voice is the number one connection way that humans communicate. I mean, that's what we're doing right now. That's how we
mhm.
communicate with newborns while they're in their tummies. You can still talk to them, and they know your sound and voice. So yeah, I love it.
So I know you've come prepared with some hints, some tips, some things that our audience can do right now to not only improve their home studios, but also improve the quality of the content that they share. So I'm going to let you loose for a few minutes to
Oh my
share
goodness,
some thoughts, and then we'll talk about it.
I love it. So the number one thing that I talk about, well, to get to get it all started, you're looking to not only optimize what you're presenting, but also the messaging. And it
Mm,
all comes down to practicing your messaging alone. Now, you might not have the best video, and I didn't have the best video for the first 2 years of my YouTube either. What I did is I just put in the reps, have conversations with people, understand how they're telling stories, and started to mimic. So after interviewing about 400 people on my podcast, I mimicked what they did, and I understood and uh, understood how to tell stories, how to
mm,
communicate. And then on the upside, on the other side, I was like, okay, how can I make my video better? So you start with understanding your own space, because once you
yes.
understand your space, and in the green room, I was talking to Kim, so I was like, if the window was covered behind you, you'd look a lot better because the light would, the camera would see you more and would stop highlighting the background. So we're making small little adjustments
Mm,
throughout the day, throughout the year, throughout the month, and you're going to get better, 360%. So if you were to upgrade 1% a day, that's 365% in the whole year. Or, yeah, 30% or 100% in 90 days. So, because we are living in the age of video, and video accounts for a whopping 82% of all internet traffic. And here's a fun fact: it only takes 10 seconds for your viewers to judge your video quality. And the
yes.
better the quality, the more trust and engagement you're uh, cultivating. Because your
True.
video setup, yeah, it's not just about aesthetics, it's about building relationships and lasting impressions. So,
I couldn't agree with you more. Could not agree with you more. I mean, think of YouTube, like where this podcast is on YouTube, and I've been studying YouTube, and all of the books I read, all of the
mm,
people I follow, they all say the same thing.
yeah,
You've got seconds at the beginning of your video to catch their attention and keep them hooked enough to stay for the first minute.
yeah,
And if you
yeah.
don't keep them hooked after the first minute, guess what? They go find something else to
They
watch.
go find something else because there are a lot of other options. There's a lot of
Yes.
options. It's almost like You go into the grocery store and you're going to pick the best looking cereal box. Right. So we're all cereal boxes. Are you the best?
Or
Now,
you're like me and you've had the same cereal for 3 years in a row now.
which is okay, That's the other thing, right? I spoke to a gentleman on a pre-call for my podcast, and I was asking him to do a few things to look better. He's like, "What are you talking about? I've done 200 guest appearances already, and nobody's talked about this." I'm like, well, there were 2 million new podcasts that were added during the pandemic. It doesn't mean that they all had a chance to talk to me where I could tell them what wrong they were doing. Now, imagine tuning into a video and spotting kitchen utensils in the background. Now, if it's not a video about cooking show,
Yes.
then it's distracting. And as entrepreneurs, we need that dedicated space. So the few things that I love to talk about or point out is it's just 3 things: your lighting, your audio, and what people see, visuals. Because we all have $1,000 camera in our pockets. Our smartphones can be used for really capturing high-end quality video. In fact, all the latest smartphones are certified by Dolby Vision and Dolby Audio
Nice.
to record content that is good enough for Netflix to showcase on their show. And Netflix has a really stringent standard. So there's actually a movie called Unsane, I think, which was all shot on iPhone 7 Pluses, and it was on Netflix. So imagine, right? So we have the gear. It's all about lighting and getting the audio right.
Yes.
Okay. Once you have the lighting, audio, and visuals, you provide a seamless experience for your viewers. And then also fewer unexpected interruptions because you have a dedicated space. No photo bombs, right? No sudden photo bombs from kids and pets. Even though you'll see in some of my videos, my kids are in the shot because I brought them in. Like, hey, this is my kid. You want to create that connection. So,
And, sometimes the kids and the pets do interrupt. And when they do, you actually just incorporate it in. I
yes.
remember one podcast episode back when I lived in Ontario. So we moved about a year or so ago.
Mhm.
And the main phone for our house was in my office. And it wasn't intentional. It's just the way it turned out. And we
Yeah.
didn't think it through. And this was long before I was ever doing podcasts, because we've been
Sure.
in that house for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
And I remember one time I actually had a co-host. My best friend was my co-host for a period of time on the podcast. And the phone rang right in the middle of an episode. And so I took a quick look around, because most of the people who called, like by that time, most people had my cell number. So
Mm-hmm.
if it was coming to the home phone, it might have been one of the moms.
Okay, yeah.
So I took a quick look over at the phone and I said, darn spam people calling me during the podcast and interrupting the show. So I thought, I'm just going to go with this and I'm going to incorporate it into the show.
Yeah.
And my co-host, she just laughed, and so we made it this fun moment.
Yeah.
And I think you have to kind of give yourself some grace too, because sometimes the kids are going to interrupt.
Yes.
Sometimes the pets, no matter how well you close that door, just find a way to
get in.
sneak in. And so I think it's also about giving yourself grace and just
Agreed.
going with the flow. Sometimes these things happen and you're just like, might as well make it a part of the video and have some fun.
And you're absolutely right, because you might gain even more followers from that little mishap. They're like, oh, this guy is just a human. This thing just happened to me, and now they have a deeper connection with you, and they're able to pay more attention to what's gonna happen next.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to see what happens next. What are they actually talking about? There was a cat. There was a phone call. So here's a little secret. Good video with bad audio guess what it is? It's a bad video because
Yes.
viewers might forgive minor visual disturbances, but poor sound can drive them away. So
Yeah.
investing in soundproofing, something as simple as rugs, foam panels can make a world of a difference. And when it comes to microphones, making sure that you have a microphone that can capture your essence is so
Mm.
important. So
Yeah.
there's hundreds of thousands of microphones available, anywhere from $50 to thousands of dollars. You gotta know what's your voice pattern and which of these microphones can capture it the best. So again, experimentation or talking to somebody who knows a thing or two about microphones can definitely help you and bring your voice to uh, to the world.
Yeah. And I think too, even just having a microphone is the first step.
Yes.
Obviously, at points you will upgrade, you will get
Mm-hmm.
better equipment. But one of the things that when I was setting up this podcast, my podcast mentor said, listen, you have to have a microphone. He
Mm-hmm.
says, you sound fine through your computer.
Yeah.
He says, but if you get a directional microphone,
Mm-hmm.
it deletes a lot of the background noise.
Yes, it's going to eliminate the background sounds because as sound waves, as they're coming from outside, they're going to drop. But
Mm.
then same thing with your voice. If the microphone is further away, for example, if it's built into your computer, it's a lot further away from the speaker, which is our
Yeah.
mouth, right? We're literally a speaker.
Well, it's funny because my husband is sort of well, not sort of, he is an electronic guru.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been the head of, sound, audio, video for
Nice.
any church that we've ever been in. And he we were having this discussion when I was talking about getting a microphone, and he's like, you have to get a directional one.
Yeah.
See, what people don't understand is a directional microphone only picks up sound from the top and a little bit around the side.
Mm-hmm.
So any background noise that doesn't come into the top of the microphone, it doesn't get caught. And
Correct.
it's actually been really beneficial in this new house. Where we lived before was sort of in the middle of woods.
Mm-hmm.
We had some neighbors, but they weren't too close. They weren't
Yeah.
noisy neighbors or anything. We're now living in town, and it's a very kind of tight, cramped town.
Mm-hmm.
And my neighbor likes to yell obscenities. And so this microphone has been a real blessing, especially since I really want to keep my Apple clean rating.
Amen. Amen. I totally get it. I totally know what you're talking about.
But
So.
even if with kids in the house,
Mm-hmm.
like I found when my kids were younger and I was doing this kind of stuff when they were teenagers and they were noisy, because let me tell you, if you
Mm-hmm.
think toddlers are noisy, teenagers aren't much better.
Oh no.
They're
Yes,
either
they
so
are.
silent you never see or hear them, or but when they are noisy, they're really noisy.
Uh huh.
Uh, but yeah, having this one small thing in this, I think this microphone was 150 bucks.
Yeah.
It's Audio Technica.
Mm-hmm.
It's a decent brand for
Yeah.
the cost.
No, 100%. And the better, as long as you have a microphone and it's close from your face, that's all
Mhm.
that matters. You're going to sound great. People can hear you because your voice is the bridge to your audience. So make sure
Yes.
it's crystal clear. I can't even say my words.
Oh,
Number,
um, go ahead.
I'm going to go to number two. What's the number
Okay.
two thing that we should focus on? It's the lighting, of course. Why do we like the daylight? Well, we can see everything. You don't do a whole lot of things at nighttime because it's dark out. You can't really
Yeah.
do a whole lot. You need to turn on the lights. So making sure that the lighting is done right, it could be a game changer or it
Mhm.
can break your video quality. For example, Kim had this huge light coming on, the sun coming in from the background, and that can break the video because people are now just looking at the light and they're like, okay, I can't look at the sun. Next video. So you want to make sure that you're doing a good, you're making that lighting work for you, not against you.
Well, it's funny. This when we first moved into this house a year ago, this room, the person who owned the house before must have been a Toronto Maple Leaf fan
Mm.
because it was a almost black, dark blue. Because
Oh wow.
Toronto Maple Leaf, it's a very their color is very, 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 very dark navy blue.
Hmm.
And so up to about a month or two ago, because I just haven't had a chance to do it with moving and everything else, and then we had a
Sure.
hurricane. There's been a lot going on in the
There's
last
been a
year.
lot going on. Yeah.
um, I I'd have to close the window because I'd had the dark blue walls, and then if you thought the light was bright, now it was torturous when you came in through dark blue walls.
Yeah.
And as I had to have so many lights in this room just
Hmm.
to get it so you could really see me because the room
Yeah.
was so dark. So
Hmm.
I had a friend come in. I paid her to come in and pay because she's a professional painter, and you would not have wanted to see what this room looked like if I had painted it. And this color is actually one that I used back in my other home office.
Hmm.
And when she painted it, all of a sudden I'm looking better on the video. It's not
Yeah.
so stark. Like my look is softer. And I
Hmm.
was like, the first day I sat in the office after she painted, I was just kind of like, oh, this room
Wow.
feels good.
Yeah.
It
It's
was
it's
so dark.
it's such a big difference, and when we moved into our home, we have dark wooden floors, and there wasn't a lot of lights. So I was like, okay, we need to put in some overhead lights to lighten up the room. We still need to paint our house, but they'll come. Things come slowly. When you own a home, it's kind of crazy.
Especially
So
when you have kids.
especially if, exactly. So
Well,
lighting
we
is.
are actually out of time,
Oh
believe
my
it or
God, we're
not.
out of time. Oh my God, that's
So
crazy.
you've got time to share one more quick thought before we go.
Okay. One more quick thought, so pay attention to lighting, make sure that you understand the basics of three-point lighting because that can drastically uplift your video quality. And we already talked about camera, getting the framing right on the camera is another cool thing. And lastly, I actually wrote a book called Mastering iPhone Video Production. It is available on Amazon, and that talks a lot about video production and setting up your lighting and all the good stuff as well.
Would it work if you have an Android?
Of course, it'll
Okay.
work on because I talk about the basics. I'm all about down to brass tacks, right? Understand the
Mhm.
basics, and you can once you can apply, you can literally then apply that to any camera.
Nice. Nice. Wow, I have so enjoyed this conversation today, and uh, I would love for you to share how people can connect with you if they have enjoyed this video and they're like, I need to learn more from him. How can they find you?
So they can head on over to hacksandhobbies.com. That is my podcast. And if you want to learn more about how to set up a good space, head on over to homestudiomastery.com.
Wow, that has been great. We have about a minute left, so I'm going to give you one more opportunity for a final thought.
Final thought, go and create content because people are waiting to listen from you.
Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right, if you have enjoyed this video, I want to encourage you to go back and I want you to listen to episode 415. So if you are on YouTube, you will see the thumbnails somewhere here on the screen. Just click on it. It's Steve Lowell and how to create a $100,000 signature talk. So after today, you've got great basics to be able to create this studio, to create this atmosphere. Steve will help you put the words together so that when you speak, everybody wants to hear what you have to say. So episode 415, if you're on YouTube, click the thumbnail. If you're on your podcast app, just scan back a bit and You know what? Today, let's do something different. Thanks, audience. Appreciate you. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye now.